Alright, so in this video I decided to try and restore the British Empire in Universalis Remastered. Initially I decided to let go of my lands in France just because I didn't want it. Yeah, the British Empire didn't actually own lands in France during, like, when it was at its peak. But regardless, I go ahead and invade Scotland trying to just annex the whole thing. And initially, during the start of the game, there was an interesting Swedish player, so there's some stuff that goes down later with Sweden. But anyway, I was asking Sweden if he planned to invade Norway, and he did, and he just didn't really cede me anything. Well, he didn't really invade it as much as he just got Norway from Lithuania. But I invaded Norway myself to try and get those two islands above England. I sieged a little area in Iceland, and I also expanded into Ireland at the same time. At this point in the game, my main idea is to try and consolidate and just strengthen my position here. And I do just that. I'm able to unite Ireland and England, and I formed Great Britain by roughly 1417 game. Which is pretty good timing, but regardless, some geopolitical stuff I should mention in the game. Lithuania isn't allied to Poland. Prussia is allied to Poland. Denmark, I think they're a player, but they aren't allied to Prussia, but they do have close ties. The Netherlands are an AI, and France is France. I'm also their ally, I think. But anyway, I do plan on snagging Malta just because the British own that. And I do, I got Malta now, which allows me to expand my ability to project my power across the world. Also, there's a Hijaz player, but he doesn't end up forming the Caliphate, which is pretty good for me since I'm able to actually go into Egypt and that area in the Middle East. But that's not until a lot later. For now, I immediately went for Miami since I want to try and prevent any Iberian power from trying to take Miami and going into Florida and that area. And it's pretty successful. I'm able to manage to snag half of Florida and expand my colonies in America a little bit. But also, a quick side note, the French could theoretically have colonized Quebec, because that's what French players tend to do. But I convinced him to go to the Caribbean, so I didn't want to go after my Caribbean desires that quickly. I just went over 3 islands just because I thought the French player would maybe want to try and get those. But I stopped there for now. I'm still missing a lot of territory in the Caribbean, the small little islands off of the coast of Puerto Rico and above Venezuela. But that gets filled in a lot later. As of now, I'm trying to seal off the east coast of the USA and also Canada. And I do it pretty effectively for the time span I did it in. Here's the drama I was talking about Sweden earlier. Basically, Sweden is at war with Denmark, Prussia, and I think either Poland or Hungary. I think it's Poland, actually. But regardless, the Sweden player had to go, which is, I think, why he wanted to launch the war. And he was able to actually hold off for a little bit before it just turned right on him. They gave my vassals of Norway 1 province in Sweden, so that's pretty cool. Because I vassalized Norway when I was invading them, so just so you guys know. Anyway, I formed a navy up just to try and, prevent anyone from potentially landing on my coastline. But I'm doing pretty good as of now. Denmark is mostly neutral at this point. I don't use any of my claims in France. I'm mostly trying to get Gibraltar here. But first I go after a rival war with Spain, which was quite frankly the correct option since Italy decides to try and be pushy with the entire server. Firstly, I'm trying to develop some stuff and expand my colony at this point, which is what you mostly see me doing at this point. Denmark is also invading the Netherlands. But pretty soon, Hungary and Italy just gang up on Bulgaria, which, I mean, they were expanding quite fast. And also, this is the point where Hejaz, I think they want to leave just because Persia want to, like, maybe subdue a threat there. Italy and Hungary over invading Bulgaria, and Persia's over invading Hejaz. I form an army up, and it's just on standby. Italy is trying to threaten me in Malta, which is quite expected. But regardless, I go ahead and try and siege some more of Spain, and it goes quite well. This is just a rival war with Spain, so I don't actually take any Spanish land, but it still goes pretty decently. My main goal is to try and get Gibraltar at this point, but this happens after the Italian War. Brief overview. Italy has twice my manpower, and I think they have more dev than me as well. I didn't actually remember the dev map, but they probably have a lot more dev than me too. And also more ports, which means they could probably sponsor more ships. So this is a pretty big issue since they want to invade me, just like push around the entire server. But I'm able to defeat them navally, which is pretty cool since I'm Britain. I have some nice naval ideas generally. And I do form an army up and try and just evict them, since I did just sink like 50,000 troops, but this is a big mistake in the run. I didn't declare war on France, so I just casually lost so many troops. I did have arbaquesters, which means I still won the battle against Italy's army there anyway, but it wasn't as great as it may have been able to be in like other scenarios. I was able to defeat more Italian ships than they defeated mine earlier. Also, a second Italian army just got sunk. I decided to spawn some more ships. The war score against Italy is slowly ticking upwards to 100 at this point, which is pretty good for me. But regardless, I think Italy tries to invade me again, but it just doesn't go that well. Or at least they try and do something. But at this point it's 100% war score, and they just like fall apart. They go bankrupt soon after, as well as me. I also go bankrupt, just because I'm spending so much to try and match someone twice as powerful as me in the game, like manpower wise. I go bankrupt, but I was able to kick Portugal right out of Lisbon before that. Hungary goes ahead and invades Bulgaria again. Again, I'm still bankrupt, so there's really not that much I could feasibly do in the situation. But Germany decides to come and help. Italy is also bankrupt, so they were actually having a pretty difficult time against Bulgaria at this point. Which, that's a pretty big turnaround. You just go down from bullying Bulgaria to just losing to it. Even though they're like twice as powerful as me in the game, manpower wise. Anyway, I'm trying to section off the Americas and trying to colonize separately, which I eventually do colonize the USA and Canada over the next 200 years in the game. But regardless, my main ambition from this point on, after defeating Italy, is to try and expand to the Middle East and try and get to those British Empire borders. So I generally tend to get tired after a certain point of playing, so I couldn't like help that many people as much as I'd like to. Like just give them some like military assistance, just because I was kind of on a time crunch. And also, if you're in my situation, you probably should if you have the time. Just, be nice to people playing the game. Sometimes. Anyway, I sent some more troops over to Portugal. This is, I think it's a rival war here. And I go ahead and claim some Mamluk land. And the war goes pretty well, although most of the war score is over in Syria, not Egypt, since the Mamluks don't own that much of Egypt anymore. The Mamluks end up getting vassalized very soon. But as of now, I'm doing pretty well. Anyway, I plan on invading Hejaz next instead of the Mamluks again. And it goes pretty well for me. I tried to claim some peripheral territory, so I can maybe try and expand into the interior a little bit more. The war goal in this war is Jerusalem, which is being sieged over in the north. I leave Mecca Medina alone, and I siege basically the entirety of Arabia here. The Hijazis are defeated, and I take some land from them. I don't abolish Arabia from, being Arabia in general. That's not something I do. I just hand over some of their important land over to the Mamluks again, which is just in time for me to invade the Mamluks and try and seize that land for myself. Anyway, the siege of Cairo goes on for a decently long time, even by the 12.5 times speed I have this video in. Because this in reality is like a 4-hour, 15-minute run, roughly. Anyway, I'm just sieging some more Mamluk land, and I was able to siege over Egypt and basically the entirety of Syria. I don't actually siege Aleppo properly, but I take what I wanted. I core Cairo and Jerusalem just because if you core those two, your unrest probably shouldn't be as bad as it may be without that. Maybe. But anyway, I'm kind of broke at this point, so I just go ahead and sack Italy. The Italian campaign goes pretty well. My AI friends are just sieging Rome, while Genoa is building a fort, so I just snag it. And it goes pretty well for war score since I'm able to just take more of Italy's money. But, I still have ambitions on southern Arabia, like Yemen, Oman, that kind of area. But as of now, I'm not there yet. I'm just pushing down into Arabia. I expand the colony pretty slowly. I sometimes just forget about it for a little bit, which does sort of extend the run of this video. Unintentionally, of course. But I'm able to conquer some Hijazi land and just steal some land in the south. I'm also able to claim some land too. Yeah, if you didn't know, that's the main reason I kind of expand like that. You just get bordering provinces, then expand from there. That's kind of what I do. But firstly, I go ahead and invade Hijaz again. I was actually noting at this point, trying to comprehend how much Pakistan might be to, claim and that kind of stuff. I was trying to make sure I got everything that the British Empire owned. Well, in-game. I would like Pakistan to be expanded, actually, just because if you're playing Bukhara or Baluchistan, there's not that much room for expansion for you. By the way, I took Southern Arabia, but back to Pakistan. There's not that much expansion for you other than into the Timors directly or just into Arabia. So I think adding Pakistan would just add some more flavor to the region, make it actually playable. And it wouldn't buff the Timors that much, because I'm not adding Delhi or anything. That's kind of what the idea of adding Pakistan is for. But regardless, I take half of Iraq, and I do take Pakistan a little bit later. Well, in-game Pakistan. And I also clean the rest of Iraq on that matter. I expand my colony a little bit. And at this point, I was a little bit concerned that some German player might join and just ruin the run. Just because Germany has roughly 33% more manpower than me. And even though my vassals could probably equal them in initial manpower, if Germany builds up at all, I'd probably just be cooked. Maybe. Again, maybe not, but Britain is an interesting country to play. But I do vassalize some countries in the Middle East, just to try and expand my power base a little bit, which I do. I was wondering if I could vassalize Persia here, which is a bit brash for me, because Persia is still pretty strong, even though they've been in AI for a while and I've just been conquering. They're still pretty strong, so I wasn't actually able to vassalize them. but I was able to just invade them, steal some of their land. I was able to go right into the Zagros Mountains before they were actually able to like do a counterattack. But after that was repelled, I just pushed right into like Turkmenistan and that kind of area. I pushed into Pakistan proper, roughly here-ish, and I was able to peace Persia and take the land I wanted. So I conquered all the provinces the British Empire had in the Middle East, which is pretty good. I just had coring issues. One thing I was lacking though was North America. This actually takes roughly like 100 years left in game. But in the meantime, there is some things that happened. Firstly, I went to hamper Germany, because Germany, they had 110,000 manpower here. I had not even close to that. I had 70,000. So I just had to get France on board. Germany just beat them very quickly, just because I was busy trying to mobilize. And it goes decently well. I try and spawn a navy just in case Germany's AI may have tried to invade England. With 4 heavy ships, I think I'd be able to do a significant amount of damage. I also just blockade them over in the Netherlands. I didn't blockade them in Lubeck. I think that's just like an oversight on my part, but yeah, other than that, I'm doing pretty decently here. My main goal here wasn't actually to like conquer anything, rather is to weaken Germany, at least initially. Secondarily, I also go bankrupt, so it's also, I kind of want some money too. And I get a whole lot of it from Germany, because they're very rich. Barkos, roughly half of Germany is sieged right now, which is pretty good for burning their development. Although it didn't matter that much. Although they're getting stomped on here, their development only plunges down to, not development, but their manpower only plunges down to 90,000, which is roughly comparable to me, so it's not as bad of a situation anymore. I think I could probably handle that decently effectively. I also got 10,000 gold from them, even though I'm bankrupt now, I think, so it's going pretty well. Bulgaria decides to colonize, and, well, they do. They go into Brazil because Portugal left a gap open, which is why you don't do that. But anyway, Bulgaria, the other player here, is doing pretty good. Also France here, but that's Bulgaria's friend, I think. I did have to go do some things, so this part was a little bit more stagnant than usual, but it's mostly just involving me trying to mop up the rest of Canada, which I do quite effectively. I'm actually nearing the end, despite how it looks like, because the provinces in eastern Canada start to get bigger and bigger, roughly, compared to the east coast at least, in my opinion. But anyway, I go AFK for a little bit. Not that much happens. The French player decides to switch to Germany, so there's something to note there. Also, his core map, apparently it's not good. I didn't actually check it in this run, so yeah, that's just so you guys know. But I didn't check his core map. He doesn't actually core everything, I think, and also he develops his land a lot, so Germany ends up pretty developed. Hungary, on the other hand, Bulgaria, they end up vassalizing the Ottomans, and they also have a pretty big domain over the Balkans, and also their culture map is pretty crazy. Anyway, I colonize a little bit more. And also the culture map is, yeah, I'm just checking the culture maps there. Germany is surprisingly not that big. England's map is mostly just England, being English. That's, yeah. I finished coring my land just because I didn't earlier. And I have 2 sets of colonization left, I think, at this point. So I'm doing pretty good on timing. Germany is developing the Netherlands, I think, mostly. And there is not really any wars that happen after this point, other than Germany invading Denmark. Which, that is like a little point you could mention, I guess. Also, side note about Denmark, they have 1 colony in Mexico that's 1 province, so if Germany managed to fully colonize them, not colonize, but conquer them, they're being turned into a 1 province minor in Mexico. So there's that. I managed to fully colonize Canada at this point, but I didn't know which islands Britain owned in the Caribbean, so I just decided to colonize those available ones. But at this point, I think the British Empire's borders have been properly restored. I decided to try to get Puerto Rico just, cause why not? But anyway, that's mostly the end of the video. I have a Discord if you guys want to join it, by the way. It's linked on my channel, I think. Anyway, that's about it. See you guys.